Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is the fourth and last video in this little mini series on budgeting by IFVI. I wanted to give three more specific examples for military vets, or active duty soldiers, I should say. We're going to go over married, single, and then my personal budget of what I have going on. So we're using pretty much the same exact examples as the last video, except we've cut out a few expenses between the married and single, just to give you more military specific examples. So you can see here in the essential fixed expenses, we've cut out the health insurance and stuff like that, so this is a little bit less. We're leasing a piece of property as opposed to purchasing something. We still have the optimized debt, and we've increased our groceries a little bit, cut out one or two variable expenses like property tax. Our nice to have expenses are still in those optimized ranges. We increase clothing and activity though, because we are using a married example, and a little bit more in restaurants as well. Our future expenses we left the same just for example purposes. So let's go over here and look at the paychecks. This is a dual income home, so we added the spouse's paycheck, which is we lowballed about $35,000 annually, and so now we have a total of about $7,800 that we can spend each month, which is pretty nice. So going to the summary of expenses, we're really only budgeted for $3,300 from our reoccurring expenses month to month, and then we have our future expenses added into that, and we're only sitting at $4,200, which gives us an excess of $3,600 every month to play with. So in this example, there's no children involved, so if you add that in, it's going to definitely change a lot of things. I didn't do an example with a kid because you can get averages on how much a kid costs each month, but realistically speaking, that fluctuates so much based off of what your child's interested in, how old they are, how much you want to provide them. If you want to buy them an iPad versus having them play with action figures, so there's so many differences on what a kid costs, but because of that drastic fluctuation, it is something you want to try and keep track of to see if you're spending too much money on new things, or too much money on name brand clothes for your kid, or whatever it is, right? So budget that into your personal budget if you have one or multiple kids, and then this number is going to definitely change a lot. But this couple is married and no children, so they have quite a bit of excess funds to play with. I would suggest putting more into the investment, maybe 100 or 150 a month. That would be good because of how much they have. And then my second suggestion would be to aggressively attack their debts, right? Especially this state student debt, which was the highest. So definitely increase these, pretty much doubling these would be my suggestion until they're paid off. Save themselves money and interest long term. So yeah, just a little bit different than the prior examples in the last video, but you can see how a military couple has a few less expenses because of the way the military pays their members. Alright, moving on to the single soldier. So once again, we're using the optimized version for the debts and everything. E5, 4 years, just like the married. So you can see the fixed expenses are going to be less because there's going to be no lease or mortgage. It's pretty much just like cell phone and then those 7 lines of debt. Moving down to variable expenses, there's definitely a lot less here because this person's going to live in the barracks, so they're just buying groceries on whatever they like. They probably have a vehicle, and then keeping that low $50 investment. The nice to have expenses is going to be probably where the single soldier spends most of their money, but if they're budgeting optimally, they're not going to spend too much here. And then future expenses, we took out the bed because they're not going to buy a bed for their barracks room, right? So, but they still have a desire to buy a new car and to go on some sort of vacation. Alright, so what does this mean for this side? So their income is definitely a lot less because they're not getting that BAH or that BAS. And some people think that, I make so much more. If I was getting BAH and BAS, I could do so much more with that money. However, as you can see here, you're cutting out a lot of expenses for where that money goes to. So there you can still do quite a bit as a single soldier, especially to attack these debts over here. So let's see, making about $2,800 a month, budgeted for about $1,400 only, so got quite a bit of wiggle room there. And then when you add in the future expenses, it's just over $2,000, right? Giving you an excess of $670. So $600, that's a lot of money for a single soldier to be able to play with, either to invest, just a little bit more, or to really attack that debt. My suggestion would be, maybe bumping up their investment to $100, and then spending the other $600 to just aggressively attack this debt as much as possible. In every example, they've had a nice nest egg in their savings account. Since we're paid salary based, you really don't need 6 months of salary as a nest egg. 2 months is perfectly fine for a crisis. The best thing is to attack the debt. Like, seriously, get rid of all that interest that you're wasting your money on. And so yeah, this is kind of a single soldier's example. This leads into, this is kind of what my budget looks like. I don't personally do a month-to-month budget because I have so much wiggle room, and because I'm not an impulse buyer. I'm not really spending my money on anything. And so I'm able to budget kind of like in my head because I have such few things to worry about. I left all of the examples on here so you can see what's zeroed out for a soldier who's kind of living in the bare minimum. While I'm here in Korea, I'm living in the barracks, so I don't have any sort of mortgage or home to deal with. I'm only paying a cell phone bill. I don't have any debt because I paid it off when I first joined the military. I spent the first 2 years of my career just paying off all the debts that I had accrued in college. So I have none of that. And it's super nice, right? So just $65 there. $350 in groceries, but I get BAS, so that makes up for it. Household items for my barracks room, I guess. And then investments. So this is where I'm spending most of my money as far as my reoccurring expenses are concerned. So every month I'm putting $1,000 away. All right, my nice to have expenses. This is way overshooting what I actually spend. I just wanted to give you guys an example. I definitely don't go out to eat this much. I definitely don't spend this every single month in clothes. It's just this high this month because I went and bought 10 more dress shirts. So yeah, movies and activities, I definitely don't spend this much. Internet, that's accurate, and gifts, sure, that's accurate. So this is overballing my month to month. I'd say $300 to $400 is probably much more realistic as far as just my nice to have stuff. All right, my future expenses, these are very realistic. When I go home, I'm going to go on a birthday trip. I need to buy a new bed for the condo I'll be purchasing, and I need to buy a new car because I currently don't have one. So my entire year spent here in Korea, I've been focusing on these three primarily. So as you can see, I'm on track in 3 months to have them paid off. So let's go over here, right? Income's the same, about 5,000. I have a nice chunk in my savings because of what I have coming up here in the future. And summary of expenses, so I'm budgeted for $2,000, but half of this going towards investments, so if I needed to drop that down to make up for something else, I could. And then coupled with my future expenses, we're looking at $4,500. So I'm bringing in about almost $5,000. My budget's for about $4,500, so I have a $500 wiggle room month to month, meaning most of the time it just goes towards my savings, or maybe I put more into the investment, whatever I need to do. I have plenty of wiggle room. A lot of my expenses are not necessary. They're comfort things, or things I could reduce if necessary. So I have a lot of financial freedom right now. And this didn't just happen overnight, right? Like I said, when I first joined the military, I really sat down and planned out how I wanted to attack my debt. I didn't go out to eat. I always went to the DFAC to save money. I didn't, do a lot of nice to have expenses in order to save as much as possible. And I hacked all my debt away in less than 2 years, over $20,000. And it's nice because now, a couple of years later, I'm sitting and I'm looking like this, where most of my money is going towards big purchases or things that I want as opposed to things that I need. And I'm able to really like hardcore invest in my retirement. So that way, come 65, I'll have a nice chunk of change waiting for me. So this is kind of just one of those victory stories I wanted to show you guys about what your budget could eventually look like, especially like if I have a kid in the future. I'm very financially prepared for something like that, right? So hopefully these 3 examples kind of gave you a better look at what it would look like for you if you are active duty, and maybe a goal to kind of shoot for, and everything like that. So if you guys have any questions, as always, just ask away and I will answer them as soon as possible. All right, thanks for listening.